We made a Frost Knight, so now let's make a Ice Princess, a Snow White almost, you could say, even though it has nothing to do with Snow White, but we're going to crack this out. So, we're going to make this build, we're going to do a level by level guide as always, and the combat tutorial, and I've even got more items for you to put on to really buff yourself. So, we're going to begin this build a little weird for level 1. We're going to go with Fighter. The reason we're doing this is I want the proficiencies with martial weapons, simple weapons, shields, and constitution saving throws. This leads us to our fighting style. Now, unfortunately, we could take defense. I think that is our best bet here. Protection is another good option. Dueling, unfortunately, we are using a versatile weapon in our hand, so dueling doesn't work. I would take defense and get the +1 bonus to armor class. And this would be my stat array, so we're going to bump our strength all the way down. We're going to leave our constitution at 16 and our charisma at 16. These are our main two. And our dexterity at 14. Now for your skills proficiencies, because we are a icy princess magic wielder, I would take something along the lines of history and either insight or survival. Okay, level 2 onwards, we are going to take sorcerer. Now we're going to start this with our cantrips. First things first, we have to take Ray of Frost. We're going to take Shocking Grasp because water and electric kind of go hand in hand. We're going to take Minor Illusion just for a little bit of adaptability. And we will take Dancing Lights. For spells, we're going to take Ice Knife. And we're going to take Shield. And Draconic Bloodline. And of course, we're going with white for cold or silver for cold. It's entirely up to you. And again, you can pick any of these that you feel fit. Okay, Sorcerer level 2, we get one more spell, and we are going to take False Life to get the 7 temporary hit points. And for our meta magic, Careful spell and Twinned spell. Okay, Sorcerer level 3, and we are working our way through here. We now have the chance to take another spell, and this time we're going to take Mirror Image. And of course, Quicken spell, so we can cast a action spell as a bonus action. Sorcerer level 4, we have more spells available, and this leads us to a feat. So we're going to start off with Mage Hand. And for our spell, I would take Misty Step, just because I really like the option of being able to move around the battlefield a bit easier. And for your feat, based on what you want to do, I would personally take the Charisma modifier, put up to +4. Okay, Sorcerer level 5. Now we have access to 3rd level spells, and we have to start with Sleet Storm. So this spell is great for breaking the concentration on other spellcasters. It can also put out fire and will create an icy surface. Sorcerer level 6, and this is where our elemental affinity comes in. We obviously get now resistance to cold, but the big one is when you cast a spell that deals damage of the type associated with Draconic Ancestry, you add your Charisma modifier to the damage. This is now just an extra amount of damage to our cold spells. And for your spell, again, I would take a lightning spell, so we're going with Lightning Bolt. Sorcerer level 7, we now have access to 4th level spells. Ice Storm. Impale a storm of hail and ice to crash from the sky, covering the ground and striking all objects and creatures within range. Sorcerer level 8, we have access to a new feat. We also can take one more spell. And honestly, at this point, there are a few options. You could go with Haste, which would be amazing because you could twin it and put it on 2 characters. Could go with Counterspell. Counterspell is also very useful a lot of the time. I am just going to take Haste for this, but again, pick a spell at this point that is based around your party composition. If you need a Counterspeller, then use Counterspell. But ideally, you want to save as many of her spell slots for fire attacks, for ice attacks, or for things like shield as a reaction. So if you have someone else that can do Counterspell, like a Warlock or a Bard, I would have skipped this, leave it on them, and then take Haste. But, being Devil's Advocate, having 2 spellcasters with Counterspell, and being able to double up on the amount you can do, is incredibly useful and versatile. Now for our ASI, we are once again boosting our Charisma to get the maximum amount of damage we can from our cold spells. Sorcerer level 9. So, we get another spell, this time 5th level, and it has to be Cone of Cold. Make a flurry of frost, crisp air, and condensed snow crystals erupt from your hands. This is 8d8 cold damage, and it is insane. Sorcerer level 10, now we have 93 health, which is pretty good for a sorcerer. That level of fighter does help a little bit, and we have access to Second Wind. For a spell here, I would take Blade Ward. And again, for this, you can have a few options. We could take Counterspell. Another good one is Dominate Person. It depends on how much you want to control the battlefield, and if you want to give up being able to use Haste, for example. And for our Meta Magic, Distance spell, increase range of spells by 50%. Melee spells get a range of 9 meters. This can just be very helpful if you want to really stand back, throw up some Meta Magic distance spells, and you can just blast people from afar. Okay, Sorcerer, level 11. Now we do have Fly as an action. This could be pretty good if you can do this as a quicken spell, as a bonus action. You could fly somewhere. Honestly though, Misty Step, in my opinion, is probably better. So this might not be the most helpful. And for your 6th level spell, Chain Lightning. Strike an enemy with lightning, 3 more bolts will leap from the target, electrifying as many as 3 other enemies within 18 meters. A phenomenal spell. The other option you have is Globe of Invulnerability. You only get to pick one of these, so choose wisely, but this could be really good for throwing it up on yourself, standing inside it so you're concentrating, and then blasting people to the outside. They won't be able to attack you inside, and if you can... It's hard. If you can get this up and then have another character cast haste on a character, and you're both inside the globe, theoretically you can have 10 rounds of haste that cannot be dropped because you're inside the globe and cannot be hit. But that will depend on your party composition. For me, I would go DPS and I would take Chain Lightning. Okay, so that is the build for our Ice Princess Snow White-esque character. Let us look at some equipment, and as you can see, we are wearing the Weave Mother's Robe. This is an Act 3 piece of equipment, but it is phenomenal. With this, you get +1 to armor class. We have resistance to fire and cold damage. We have the Create or Destroy Water spell, and Watery Rejuvenation. As the character wearing it, if we stand in a water surface at the start of our turn, we heal for 1d4 hit points, which means if we can throw water at our feet, stand in it, we will continuously heal until that water has evaporated. Very, very good ice and water-based equipment. Next up, let's look at weapons. So, my first choice, but this does come with a prefix, Morning Frost. Now, this is an Act 1 staff, so you could get it very early on. It will deal 1d4 cold damage if you hit it melee, but it has Heart of Ice, so when dealing cold damage, the wielder deals an additional 1 cold. So you just deal an additional 1 point of damage on top of the ice damage you're already dealing. It also has Insidious Cold, so when dealing cold damage, the spell could inflict Chilled upon the targets. And it has Ray of Frost, which we can cast as a cantrip. But please note, the Ray of Frost that comes with this staff uses Intelligence as the spellcasting modifier. As a sorcerer, our spellcasting is based on Charisma. That's the one downside to this. You have to make sure you select the correct Ray of Frost cantrip from your spell list, otherwise you are going to be nerfing yourself without meaning to. For an endgame weapon, I would take the Staff of Spell Power. Now this is a staff you can get in Act 3, and what's special about it is it has Arcane Enchantment, so you gain a +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls, and Arcane Battery, which means once per long rest, I believe it's once per long rest, please don't quote me on that, the next spell you cast will not expend a spell slot, which is really good because you could theoretically throw up a Ray of Frost, turn your Arcane Battery on, and then do a massive Chain Lightning, or a massive 4th level spell, and completely save the spell slot. If you want to have 2 rounds of big damage dealing, that could be the staff for you. Now let's look at some more equipment. When it comes to rings, the Snowburst Ring is amazing. When the wearer deals cold damage, they also create a 4.5 meter circle of ice around the target. This is great because if you hit this on a melee character, or if you hit a melee character with a ranged ice attack, they will then be surrounded by ice and they have more chance of falling prone and therefore ending their turn as soon as they try and move into melee range of someone. We have the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation. Now this, when we cast a cantrip, so in our case Ray of Frost, we add our spellcasting modifier to damage dealt, which at the beginning of the game is +3, and at the end of the game is +5. Now again, it's not a huge amount of damage, But if we can stack a bunch of this damage on top of each other, our attacks can go from, let's say, a 10 to a 15. It's that easy. For gloves, Winter's Clutches. When the warrior deals cold damage, inflict 2 turns of Encrusted with Frost. Once again, just pairing up all this frost damage and trying to really immobilize people. Now the good thing with Encrusted with Frost is if you can stack 7 amounts of this on a target, they will then become frozen for 2 rounds. So you can really help immobilize characters by continuously hitting them with ice, building up this Encrusted with Frost, and therefore they just cannot move. Couldn't find a cloak that really benefits cold damage, but I did find the Cloak of Protection, which is a +1 to armor class and a +1 to your saving throws. Now for a hat, this is what pairs really nicely with the Winter's Clutches, and this is the Cold Brim Hat. Now, this is a hat that, once per turn, any condition inflicted on a target also applies 2 turns of Encrusted with Frost. And if you can stack these items together, you can build this Encrusted with Frost up, more likely to again get the 7 Encrusted with Frost on a target, and therefore they become frozen. And for a shield to boost our AC, we have the Absolute's Protector. This allows us to do Fire, Shield, Chill. And this means we only take half damage from all fire damage, which is kind of irrelevant thanks to the lovely gown we are wearing. But anyone that hits us with a melee attack will take 2d8 cold damage. Okay, so that is all the items done. Let's go find some combat and I will show you this build in action. Now, my one tip for this build before we get into the fight, just to cast False Life. Now obviously the higher you do it, the more you get. 32 temporary hit points if you expend a level 6 spell slot. I don't think that's entirely worth it. I would probably just do 2nd level and get 12. Just like that, it's a small little buff, but it could help. Okay, so just as a quick demonstration outside of combat. As I said, this robe allows us to call forth the rain or a water-based surface. So let's create some water. We're going to apply it on ourselves. And as you can see, we have the wet status. And we are healing outside of combat for that 1d4. Because we are standing in the puddle and this just keeps bouncing. So if you find yourself being damaged and you don't want to use a healing potion on your character, find a puddle or cast Create Water, and therefore you can buff yourself this way. And as you can see, we have fully healed just from standing in a puddle. That's what makes this so amazing outside of combat, is you basically have a free healing potion that you can just stand in. It's amazing. Okay, so let's go find some combat, and we're going to test this build out. I'm going to do a few things before combat, just to show you the maximum damage you can do, because I want to show off a lot of these spells, and I'm just worried with the limited spell slots we have. Trying to do it in one piece of combat might not really show off just how powerful this build can be. Okay, so let's start off with Cone of Cold. We are going to cast this at 6th level, so it is 9 to 72 damage.
You sought a fight, and now you have.
So if we go to our combat log, you will see that we dealt 48 damage to one enemy and 25 to the other. The 48 was 98, so 43 damage overall, plus our 5, and that is additional cold damage with the elemental affinity. Amazing. This is also encrusted with frost for 2 on them and knock them prone, and this one only has 12 health left. An amazing way to do this. Okay, so as you can see, the barbarian has come right up to us. Now, we're going to take some damage here because I'm going to just show off the ideal thing you can do with this build. So, obviously, you can stand in the water and just keep healing every turn. But the other option you have is you could do a quicken spell. We could then cast Create Water, do it at level 4. And we're going to make some water, try and keep us out of it. There we go. Now, because they have got the wet status, they've also become encrusted with frost. And then what you can do with these enemies that are wet is come in here with a chain lightning, especially if you have a big group of them together. And you're going to deal an immense amount of damage because they're already wet. Now you can see, we took nothing from that despite being wet ourselves. If we come to our damage, you can see, because they are vulnerable, because they were wet, we did 49 damage times 2. And again here, 54 damage times 2. Now please note, Create Water only works once per once per short rest, so use it wisely. If you do want to deal an immense amount of lightning damage, you can do, but you will evaporate all the lightning. Or you can stand there and you can continuously heal yourself in a fight. It is up to you, just make sure you plan that out how you want to do it. If you do choose to do the lightning, then you do still have some options. We could come in here, and again, with a quicken spell, we could do an ice knife. We'll do it at 5th level, just because why not? Now they saved, but they are now stuck in that. And then we could come in with a very simple Ray of Frost. We could do an Ice Storm. We could do another Cone of Cold, because we have the spell slots. We're just going to do a simple Ray of Frost. And because it's a cantrip, and we have our buffs from our equipment, which I am currently managed to have the Cold Brim Hat, the robes as you saw, I have the Snowburst Ring, and the Necklace of Augment, which is what adds the damage to our spellcasting ability. What I should do is throw on the shield as well, which would give us Fire Shield Chill, but I forgot to equip it. And obviously we still have shield as a reaction, so we can do that to really just keep making them miss. So we could, for example, come in here, use haste as our quicken spell, cast it on Lae'zel, for example, and then we still have shield to back us up for when we take damage. We, though, are going to come in here, we're going to use another quicken spell, because I want to showcase the freeze ability if I can. As you can see, we knock them prone. They are encrusted with frost on 7. So if we come in here, they have rare frost, so movement speed is reduced by 3, and they are encrusted with frost. When there are 7 or more turns remaining, the entity must succeed a Constitution saving throw, or take 1 to 4 cold damage and become frozen. So now, if this character is to fail their Constitution saving throw, they will become frozen. So let's see what happens. Now, sadly, they made their Constitution saving throw, so they aren't frozen. But with how little health they had, they are basically dead anyway. And as I said, we have the availability that if we wanted to, and if we had the spell slots, unfortunately we don't, because Quicken Spell does use a lot. We could cast a Haste, and we could put it on Lae'zel, for example. And now Lae'zel is going to have multiple attacks around. And this haste will last as long as Lae'zel, as long as our Snow Princess, our Ice Princess, our Snow White, whatever you want to call her, has her concentration. And because this is still the same round, we can now do multiple attacks on this target because we have haste. Just like that. And again, we have the option, Ray of Frost, as a cantrip. And that time it worked. They are now frozen. So the frozen ability, they become incapacitated, and if dealt bludgeoning, thunder, or force damage, the ice shatters, ending the condition, which means we can hit them with slashing damage and they will remain frozen. If you can do this to a large group of enemies through things like Sleet Storm or quickened Rays of Frost to multiple targets and freeze multiple targets, you can immobilize half the battlefield without even trying. Couple this with standing in water. For example, if we move in here, at the end of this turn we are just going to heal up. As you can see there, they have remained frozen, and now we have healed for 2 hit points. Again, 2 is not a lot, but it's the equivalent to using a smaller healing potion over the course of a few rounds. And as a little top up, we do obviously have second wind, so if we really wanted to, we can hit our bonus at point, and we have that, before moving back into the water. And that is how powerful this build is, and it's a lot of fun. You can immobilize a whole group of enemies just through amazing frost damage, whether it be the cantrip with all the bonus damage from our charisma, whether it be with big damage dealing spells like Ice Storm, or if it's through the use of creating water and then hitting a massive chain lightning. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what about this you would change. If you haven't already, please drop the video a like, helps me amazingly. If you're new and you're not subscribed but you'd like to, that'd also be amazing. And hopefully, I will see all you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.